Wrestling fans, are you ready? For the thousands in attendance and the millions watching around the world, let's get ready to rumble!
And now, please welcome at this time your hosts, Graham GSM Matthews and RJ Marceau. You're listening to the next era of wrestling radio. This is WrestleRant Radio.
What's going on, guys? Welcome back to WrestleRant Radio for Thursday, July 25th, 2024. I'm Graham GSM Matthews. Hope you guys are doing well. Having a great week so far. We got another big episode on tap today. This time, the WWE Hall of Famer Mark Henry joining us, the world's strongest man himself, talking all about his new A&E Biography Legends documentary that aired last week on A&E. We're talking about that, his journey, his awesome theme song in WWE, and so much more. He actually remembered me at the beginning of our conversation from when I met him last time, about three and a half years ago, which was really, really cool. And we got that on the actual conversation, the recorded conversation here, which was awesome. So you'll hear that, the interview itself, followed by my conversation with Mr. Marceau, talking all the latest in WWE, including the rumored departure soon, the impending departure of Bobby Lashley from WWE, and a whole lot more. New episodes of WrestleRant Radio available every single Thursday on WrestleRant.com, WrestleRantRadio.com, and all your usual favorite podcast platforms. Check out the show, rate the show, review the show, subscribe to the show. Never miss a new episode every single Thursday. Now, without further ado, enjoy my exclusive conversation with WWE Hall of Famer, the world's strongest man himself, Mark Henry. Graham GSM Matthews for the Bleach Report and Fansided. Today we're talking to Mark Henry, the subject of the upcoming WWE biography doc on A&E this coming Sunday, July 21st, 8 p.m. Eastern Time. Mark, what's going on, man? Thanks for taking the time. I appreciate it.
Man, thank you, man. We met before, didn't we?
We did. So I was going to share this a little bit later on, but a few years ago, you had a signing. I think it was one of those, wrestling signings in New York, the big event or something like that. I was there with my girlfriend and her brother, rather. He wanted to go and he couldn't make it. He has autism, for the record, and he doesn't do well with big crowds. I appreciate you remembering that. And we sent him a video. You offered to do it. I didn't even ask you for it. We got him an autograph. I saw it in his room the other day. He loves it. You're his favorite wrestler. And I told him the other day that I was talking to you today, and he was super excited. So I got to thank you for that all these years later.
That's awesome. I remembered that.
That's sick. Well, just talking about that, I feel like, to me anyway, you got this documentary coming out this weekend talking about your career and your life. I feel like that's such a big part of your legacy is how great you are with the fans. And obviously being a babyface on TV, we've seen that. But I feel like that's such a big part of your legacy in the business as well, is how great you are with fans and just interactions like that, in my personal opinion anyway.
You know what? It was pretty easy for me to be me and act the way that I was raised. Mm-hmm. And that was one of the things that WWE always knew when I worked for them, that they could always put me on everything except the hospital visits. Because I would cry the whole time.
Yep.
But everything else, they would always Special Olympics, Starlight, Starbright, Be a Star campaigns, nonviolence, the Republican National Convention, the Democratic National Convention, anything that could be done, mm-hmm. They knew that I could do it and go make people feel special and be at the upfronts, because that's who I was. And, you can't put somebody in an environment where they can't handle that or want to do that.
Mm-hmm. I feel like just talking about that sort of stuff, that was another event years earlier. I had gone to one of those, it wasn't a Be a Star rally. I think it was the Special Olympics here in Connecticut. They would hold an annual event. You were here with Paige at one point about a decade ago. Again, you waited until the very last person that day to meet every single person that was in line. Is that sort of stuff and doing those events always been important to you, or was there like a turning point rather at some point in your career?
No, I believe when you make a commitment to do something that you finish it.
Yeah.
Like, we just before you, there was a guy that was in transit, and he's like, trying to do the interview because he's like, damn it, I'm not home yet. And I'm like, listen, man, I can't hear you. Go home, do what you got to do, and then call me at the end. I'll wait on you. I'll do it. And it's like that's who you got to be. And the WWE knew who they had. I just didn't have experience in the corporate sector, and they wouldn't hire me because I didn't have experience, and I had to go and cut my teeth and work elsewhere to show them that I could do it without them.
Mm-hmm.
And like now I'm booking and running all Caribbean wrestling, and we're putting together unbelievable shows. And now we're going to do a versus with MLW.
That's awesome.
We open for business. If WWE wanted to do some work with me in the Caribbean, I'll bring them in. But I like being a boss.
That's awesome. I mean, just talking about that too, I know you talked about your departure from the company a couple of years ago, getting that experience. That only came in the last 3 years. The stuff that you did in AEW and the stuff that you're doing now with Caribbean Wrestling, like you said, and you were already at that, like the name of this biography, obviously, Legends. And you're one of those legends. You were already at legend status. You went to the Hall of Fame years ago. But like, it seems like you're also of the mindset that you never really stop learning and you're always gaining experience and finally, finding new ways to master your craft, so to speak.
You're never going to stop learning.
Mm-hmm.
I don't care how many master's and doctorate degrees you got. There are a lot of people that have master's and doctorate degrees, can't hold a conversation with me. They haven't walked the walk that I've walked.
Mm-hmm.
They never met nobody in their life that's been to the Parliament, that's been to the White House, and that's been to the Kremlin. I lived in Germany before the wall came down.
Mm-hmm.
I lived in England. I lived in Calgary. Like there's no place on earth that I feel out of place. So like when you have somebody that has an understanding of systems and how to deal with people, that's very rare.
Mm-hmm.
And that's willing to put the ego aside. Because, I've met a lot of stars and celebrities that made me hate being a celebrity because of the way they treat people.
Mm-hmm.
I treat everybody like the janitor and the CEO. There's no difference.
Was there any one experience that you've had in your time in wrestling and just in life in general, obviously, where you met someone like that you were actually surprised they were as nice as they were for being, a famous celebrity or whatever, that kind of helped you implement those, ideals that to treat everyone equally, like you said? Was there any interaction that surprised you the most in your time in wrestling and beyond?
In wrestling, I couldn't believe how nice Hulk Hogan was. Like, he was very respectful to me, and Goldberg, like, they followed me as an athlete.
That's cool.
So they knew me as Mark Henry the strongman, not Mark Henry the wrestler.
Mm-hmm.
And Goldberg actually came to watch me compete at the Olympic Games in Atlanta.
Wow.
And years later, he was like, hey, man, I want to show you something. And he showed me a recording from a VHS tape that he recorded me competing at the Olympic Games. He was there, and he was like,
That's
man,
nuts.
I had to come see you compete. Like, I was like, wow, that's heavy. And after my retirement speech, Hulk Hogan called me. And I was like, how did Hulk Hogan get my phone number? Like, and he was like, hey, man, that might have been the best piece of work I ever saw.
Wow.
And so like you get people like that. He didn't have to do that. And Hulk Hogan's seen everything. And I think he was just being nice.
Mm-hmm.
But Terry was always nice to me. And I offered to help Terry when he was at his lowest point.
Mm-hmm.
And he didn't take me up on it, but nonetheless, the olive branch was extended. I hope to see him again one day.
That's nice. Well, with Goldberg too, wasn't he in the same Hall of Fame class? Didn't you guys going together that same year?
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah.
That's crazy.
And lives not far from. He's probably about an hour away from me, hour and a half. And his son just went to Colorado, and my son just went to Oklahoma. And like we talk about our kids all the time. He's a good man.
That's crazy, dude. I mean, you talk about that too. I mean, Goldberg's kid was on WWE TV. Like, even during his most recent run, he was on the show like 8 years ago or whatever. And obviously, you featured your children on television at too, a few different points. The fact they're in college now is crazy. I mean, that just goes to
Right.
show how much time flies. I mean, you're the father, so you know, but that is pretty crazy to think about.
It is, and I have a 14-year-old daughter. Joanna's wrestling. Came in second in the district and in track and played volleyball and basketball. Like, she's a well-rounded athlete too. So I got 4 more years of high school sport.
That's awesome. Well, congrats. There obviously, genetics in the family, and you guys got a pretty strong lineage
And a
there.
work ethic.
And work ethic, of course, of course.
And understanding that whatever you choose, you got to practice and you got to study it.
Yeah.
It don't happen just by genetics.
Absolutely. Just a mere factor is the genetics. I think the parenting, like you said, is a big part of it as well.
Yeah.
Just talking about your career and everything that you've accomplished, of course, over the course of it. You talk about everything that you've, in the documentary and your journey and whatnot. What is the worst piece of advice that you've gotten over the course of your career? A lot of great pieces of advice, I'm sure, but like, what is the worst piece of advice that you may have been like, I'll do the opposite of this, if it comes to mind at all?
Oh man. You know what? The worst advice I ever got was a rib from when I first came into wrestling. Um, the guy worked me into saying, don't take shit off nobody.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, like, if they sense weakness, they'll take advantage of you.
Mm-hmm.
And I was already pretty aggressive. So, like, anytime somebody challenged me or joked around, like, I was not receptive of it. And it almost bricked me out of being in wrestling.
Wow.
Because, I made a lot of mistakes with, threatening people and challenging people and wanting to fight everybody. And like, it was just just bad advice. And then it took for Bret and Owen Hart, to be able to really help educate me on what it was to be in the pro wrestling business. And he said, listen, you can listen to me because my family's been in wrestling for 100 years.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you talk to my dad. So I used to talk to Stu Hart. I would go over to their house and talk to Stu. And man, just that was the beginning of me going, oh man, I had it all wrong.
Mm-hmm. Just the stuff that you learn over the course of your career. And that was early on too. So again, once you kind of move past that, you kind of figure out the rest as you go along through experience.
That's what I should have done first.
Yeah.
Before I came in, then we wouldn't have had those problems.
Mm-hmm.
Because I also thought that because I was a great athlete, that wrestling was going to be easy.
Mm-hmm.
And wrestling is far from easy. And I was able to get it, but I had to work to get it.
Yeah.
The Rock will tell everybody that he worked hard because he did, and he studied and he understood. But The Rock knew wrestling intrinsically from being a kid in osmosis.
Mm-hmm.
Because the first day I was there at his first day of practice.
Wow.
And he was able to run the ropes, drop down, leapfrog, get it again on the first day. And I was like, wait a minute, how'd you do that? I couldn't believe it, but he was great. And but a lot of that came like my son is going to be. My son already knows how to hit the ropes and drop down and leapfrog and all of that stuff. And he hasn't had any wrestling training because I wouldn't allow it.
Yeah.
I took him to a mocap deal, a motion capture thing, and I stood back and watched him play around in the ring, and I was like, damn.
He's got it.
he's got it.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, when the time comes, I said, you give me a college degree, and then I'll start working with you. I'll help you get in the business.
Yeah. That's awesome. Hey, maybe we'll see him in the future as well. There's a lot of second generation
I
stars
don't,
running
I
out
don't
there.
doubt it.
Wouldn't doubt it. Yeah.
Yeah,
At
I
some
don't
point in
doubt
the
it at
future.
all.
Yeah. We look forward to it. I mean, I'm sure it's going to be coming at some point down the road. He's got a Hall of Fame father, so he's got the guidance there, work ethic as well. I mean, all the pieces you put it together. Certainly
Yeah.
not a bad package to have. You talk about your career. For me personally, I got into wrestling so late. So I got in like 2008. So I actually missed when I first started watching a good
Wow.
chunk of your career. And then like 2011 is one of those years where like you look at the product and how white hot it is right now, wrestling in general, but WWE specifically. Some of those early years of when I first started watching weren't exactly great, but you were a big part of those fun times and matches and segments. But obviously, bringing up all the time, the Hall of Pain stuff in 2011. There was Orton and Christian that year, Punk and Cena, Hall of Pain with Mark Henry, one of the best parts of the entire year. And then obviously from that point forward, just talking about like that run itself and just the late career resurgence that you got around that point. And also the retirement speech a couple years later, like that whole year couple stretch. We saw that recently with AJ Styles and how influential it is. Because I mean, you won a world championship, what, 15 years, 16, 17 years after debuting? I feel like that
Yeah.
sends a message to anyone on the roster then, now, and forever, really, that you can achieve. And this goes for life in general, but in wrestling especially, that you can achieve anything at whatever age if you have the work ethic and you just keep at it.
Yeah, and multiple messages, like evolution.
Yep.
Where you start is not always where you're going to finish. And every year you got to evolve. And if you're not trying to get better and trying to do something different, then you're going to get left behind, because that's just the way. Look at technology. Think about the phone you have.
Mm-hmm.
What version of the phone do you have? Do you have the 14 or 15, whatever they got now?
I got
Like,
the 10. I got a couple of years ago.
right. So,
Yeah.
there was a time when I had like the 8.
Yeah. Me too.
And the applications now wouldn't work on my phone. And I had to get a 13.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
You got to evolve.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, technology and systems are going to change, and so should you with the times. And, I did that from Olympic athlete, Olympian, Mr. USA, to sexual, the Nation of Domination and Sexual Chocolate, to back to being the world's strongest man legitimately, after winning in 2002, to the Hall of Pain, to, being back to Mark Henry, the guy that wanted to do the right thing on the way out. Like, I surrendered to, I'm not as good as I used to be. And before I start looking like I'm not good, I'm going to get out. And thus the retirement. And then I did that so well that I was talked into doing a retirement speech and coming back in.
Yeah.
You got a lot left. You could do more. And I'm like, every time I try to get out,
Yeah.
they pull me back in.
Yeah.
And it was short-lived because my body was so beat up. And it would have been great. And people were mad at WWE because they were like, man, you jobbed Mark Henry out. He should have beat John Cena. It wasn't their choice. I told them I was done. I only did that because it was good for the business. Like, I could not sustain a world championship run. You got to do all the media. You got to do the main event. You got to open the show. Like, my body was destroyed. I broke my back, and I wrestled that last 5 years with a broken back. A lot of people don't know that.
That's crazy.
And I still haven't had the surgery. I'm having surgery at the beginning of August.
Wow.
So
Good luck with that.
I'm sorry?
Good luck with that.
Oh, thank you. It's going to be all right. Like, it can be fixed. I I intentionally waited on the technology to get better because that's the advice that I got from the doctors. They're like, well, if you do the surgery now, they're going to have to put a zipper on you, cut you open and do this and that. Now it's all orthoscopic.
Yeah. Well, hopefully all goes well. I mean, obviously waiting was obviously the best thing because it's so much different now. That's crazy.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's
So
awesome.
much better now.
As we wind down here, Mark, last question for you. Like I said, growing up in that era of the Hall of Pain and stuff like that, obviously going back and watching your entire career, and the documentary is going to cover all of it. Big part of the presentation is in WWE is the entrance music. And one thing I'm glad you didn't change towards the end there in WWE was that 3-6 Mafia song. It's such a great fucking song. We got to talk about that. I mean, just it was cool to see in AEW, but when you couldn't come out to it, it's like, man, that's disappointing. But WWE has the rights to the song, and if you make an appearance at some point down the road, whenever it might be, you can use that song again. So just talk about how important that song was to your presentation and in WWE, and if you were a fan of it as much as the rest of us.
You know, I loved it, man. Like from the time that I was introduced to the music, I was like, wow, man, this bangs.
Yeah.
You know, like this is awesome. And then I was told that, hey, we want you to talk to the group that's gonna do the theme.
Mm-hmm.
And so I talked to Juicy J on the phone for like 2 hours almost about my life and where I came from and who I was. And he was like, man, like I'd love to be able to meet you and, you know, and talk some more. And I said, you know what, man, I'm actually going to be in Memphis. And he said, you know what, man, like I wasn't going to go to Memphis because he was in California at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, but you know what, man, I need to go back and see my people or whatever. And so we ended up meeting in Memphis. And the WWE had a show. And I went and talked to him and we sat and he came up, he said, man, he said, I got way more than enough. He said, man, I'm finna do this. And they went in the studio. About 5 or 6 days later, he calls me and say, you want to hear it? And I was like, hear what? And he was like, the song. I said, you finished? I thought that, I don't know what I was thinking. The process of how they do it. I don't know. Mm-hmm. And when I heard the music and it said 3-6 Mafia, and then it went into the lyrics, I think I started crying.
I would too. It's a great song.
I just sat back, man, and I listened to it like 5 times in a row that first day. Mm-hmm. And I was like, this is unreal. And it's amazing, man, that, you know, the musical outlived me. Mm-hmm. You know, just the thought of that is crazy. I told my son, I said, I don't care if they change the lyrics, but when you wrestle, you got to use that theme.
He has to.
And you got to let them change the lyrics and do whatever they want to do. But he said that music is Henry music. It's our music forever.
It is. It's going to carry on forever, Mark. In addition to your legacy, you can't short sell yourself. Your legacy as well will live on forever through all, but not only yourself, but your kids and everything else that you've accomplished. So it's going to be covered all in the documentary coming up this weekend. People could check it out. Congrats and everything. This was great catching up, man, for the first time in a couple of years. I appreciate you remembering that. Like I said, when I told him I talked to Miz last week, he didn't give a shit about that. He didn't care. I tell him I talked to this person, talk to that person. He doesn't care. But I told him his name's Devin. I said, I'm talking to Mark Henry in a couple of days because the documentary's coming. And he goes, he perked up a little bit. He was very excited about that. So one of these days when you're doing a sign in the Northeast, I'll have to try to get him out and meet you in person.
That dude is the, I said this probably about a year ago, and I said it on Busted Open Monday after his documentary aired. Miz is the most underrated Hall of Fame wrestler of all time.
He's excellent too.
There's nobody remotely close. In the space of, I never saw it coming, and I don't think he'll ever make it. There's people that didn't even think he would make it.
Yeah,
and definitely didn't want him to make it. And I told him, I said, weather the storm, because he was exactly what I was when I came. And like, that's one of the reasons why we have a good relationship is, you know, like I would mentor him. I would talk to him and I would say, bro, just be quiet, weather the storm. It'll be over in a minute, and rise above it. And he did, you know, not because of what I said, but because he just wanted success. I ain't never met nobody that wanted success more than him. I thought I wanted success. Like, that dude is driven, man. Like, he's special.
He's awesome too. And now listen, 20 years later, you guys are both legends in your own right, and you got documentaries being made about your career. So
right. Ain't that nuts?
That's crazy, man. Hey, listen, look, as someone who grew up on you guys, it's awesome to chat with you both. Great in your own ways. And like I said, Mark, great chatting with you again, and I'll catch you down the road.
All right, man.
Big thanks to Mark for the time. Really enjoyed the conversation. His documentary was great too, so go back and check that out if you haven't already over on A&E. Now we throw it to my conversation with Mr. Marceau to talk all the latest in the world of wrestling. Mr. Marceau, brother, how you doing?
Doing good. How are you?
Doing all right. We're closing in on SummerSlam next week, and we got a lot of stuff to talk about before then. Obviously, the big story in the last week came out on Sunday. People still talking about it now. Kind of dominated really what happened on Raw the following night and what's been going on in the last couple of days in the world of wrestling. But I got to start with this. Bobby Lashley reportedly on his way out of WWE. I mean, he's still in WWE right now as we speak. That could change in the next couple of days, but him, MVP, and Tamina, the rumor, I mean, I know that what a class right there, but throwing Tamina with Bobby and MVP. Nothing against Tamina, but not quite the same class of competitors. But on Sunday, the rumor came out that they were removed. I think the source was hashtag PWN, something like that. Wasn't a source that you would normally see in the news. They were actually the same people, actually, that reported about the women's mid-card belts a couple weeks ago, and you would ask me, is this a legit source? And I said, typically not, but there might be some smoke to the fire here, because Fightful and PW Insider also backed up this report. They were removed from the internal roster over the weekend, which typically indicates that, you know, like, if you have a very serious injury, like, you know, a Tyson Kidd or a Big E, people like with those type of injuries are still in the company, obviously, under a certain capacity, but they're not wrestling, so they're taken off the internal roster. Or like Bray Wyatt, after he got sick, within a couple of months of that happening, he was taken off the internal roster because they weren't sure when he'd be back. I don't think that's the case with Bobby. I think it's a case of, as these outlets are reporting, that he is interested in potential free agency. And he is still under contract, like I said, as is MVP. Tamina still works there, but probably behind the scenes, or they might have her train or whatever, but she's still in the company. MVP and Bobby specifically are on their way out. Not only are they on their way out, but they could be AEW bound. The report indicated that they might be interested in getting the Hurt Business back together. Now, we have not seen the Hurt Business as a full-on, full-fledged faction probably in like 3 years. I know they had teased reuniting in late 2021, 2022, 2023. There were a lot of teases for it, and they never really went, you know, they never really fully reunited the group for whatever reason. Under Vince, under Triple H, they never really got the group back together. Shelton Benjamin was released back in September of last year, and he hasn't done much since on a major scale. And they might want to get the group back together in AEW, apparently. So your thoughts on that report? You know, Bobby's time in WWE we'll get to in a moment, but the idea that Bobby might be on his way out of the company and headed to AEW, are you in favor, or you think it might not be a great idea?
I mean, I saw the reports and I was like, oh, geez. I mean, obviously he hasn't been around in a little bit. I think when I was listening to Hashtag yesterday, you kind of mentioned that he was out seemingly injured. I mean, I feel like he hasn't been around in a little bit. But, I mean, he is a little bit older. I mean, if they really want to do the whole Hurt Business thing, I guess that's a good opportunity. But, I mean, him, Shelton, MVP, I assume they're all have to be in their mid to late 40s at this point.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, not sure if they're going to have like a big run coming up, but like if he's really set on doing that, I mean, it's definitely an opportunity. But, I mean, for AEW, I mean, I know he is like a bigger star, but it's like, do you focus on what you already have and kind of younger talent, or do you just like want a big name? Because obviously Bobby's still like a good sized name and it's a good get for anyone. But obviously, like I said, mid 40s, doesn't really have that much left in the tank. But I think he probably has a good year or two left as like could be a top heel. So, I mean, I think there's legs there. It just really depends on what you're looking to do, like, company-wide.
Yeah, Bobby specifically, I've always thought was a weird fit for AEW. Not that there was ever really the chance that he would go there until now. I mean, for the last couple of years, he's been pretty prominently featured for the most part, really since his initial rise to the WWE title back in 2020, 2021. Yeah, but I just feel like with the Hurt Business, there is a lot of untapped potential there. Running that back in AEW, as opposed to WWE, do you think, one, that it would, first of all, succeed? And two, you mentioned yourself, and I'd mentioned this in hashtag as well, that all the members, Bobby, MVP, Shelton, are at least 45 or up. Shelton might be a little younger. He might be the youngest of the bunch. I might be wrong in that. I don't remember. But I'm pretty sure they're all at least 45 right now, if not higher. MVP might be 50. But MVP can't really go in the ring at this point, but he was a great manager when he was on the show with Bobby for a while there. Shelton can obviously go. Bobby, we know, can go. If you're Tony Khan specifically from that standpoint, is it worth it to bring these guys in? You're going to get a good group out of it. But these aren't guys that you're really building towards for the future. It's not they're like mid-30s, late 40s. Like Ricochet, they bring him in, and they should, and they probably will. He's mid-30s. He can do some, good for the company working with those people. If they were to bring in the Hurt Business, great group, and I'm not dismissing the value they would add to AEW, but do you add like not specifically this individual, but like a Dante Martin type person, or, maybe not Leo Rush, but someone like that to add to the group that might be on the younger side, like a Cedric when he was a part of the group a couple of years ago. He's still in WWE, of course. That could benefit from being with them to make it worthwhile for Tony Khan, or do you just bring in the three of them as it is?
Yeah, I mean, I think if you're going to bring them in and feature them at like a decent level, I think you'd want to put a young guy with them to try to rub them off on the group. Did just a quick Google search. Bobby's 48, Shelton's 49, and MVP's 50. So, wow. Old, a little bit old, like we said, older. Oh, we said over 45. I mean, they're all 50 or close enough. So, yeah. I mean, like I said, it all really depends on how we say it all the time. It's realistically how you book them. I mean, like I said, I think Bobby specifically has like a good year or two left as like a decently dominant heel. I just don't really see him pushing him at like a high enough level that it'd be worth it. Like, I don't think he's going to be like a main event there, but I think with WWE-wise, I feel like it'd be a perfect idea to turn him heel and go against, you mentioned on hashtag, like, go against like Cody, like in a little feud against Cody, but I guess that's not the direction they're going in. But I think depending on what they do, if they're going to, like I said, make the group serious or book them well, it would be smart to put a young guy with them.
Yeah, I feel differently about Bobby than I do like an Edge or a Ricochet, and they were in two different situations as well, respectively. With Edge, he wanted to go, and he wanted to have his one last run, being more active. Obviously, he got hurt recently. But, he was more active on TV than he was in WWE. He did all the major matches in WWE in the 3 or 4 years he was there for, with Rollins and Roman and AJ and Balor and a few other people along the way. There were obviously more matches he could have done, but he wanted to work with Christian, and that made sense. The Ricochet one, him leaving on his own, also we talked about it. I'm actually in favor of that because he can get some fresh matches in AEW. He's more of a high flyer. They kind of specialize in that stuff. I just feel like, not that he's going to have more of a chance to work at a higher level, because they have already so many people as it is as well, in addition to WWE. But he's already done all that he can do in WWE. As a former U.S. champion, IC champion, he's worked with a lot of the people in WWE. I was fine with him moving on. Bobby, obviously, it's not my choice. He can do whatever the fuck he wants. But I'm just saying with Bobby, like you mentioned, and as I already alluded to yesterday, you have Cody, Gunther, Braun Breaker. I mean, I know he just worked with Karrion Kross, and that feud was what it was, but, there were just so many more people I think they could have worked with, and putting over the Profits. You could have just turned Montez Ford heel or turned Bobby heel and have Montez Ford work with him. I mean, there's a million different things you could do with a guy like Bobby Lashley. I think he was actually hurt, because it looked like he was going to work with Carmelo Hayes before he got hurt and was taken out of the King of the Ring, and we haven't seen him on the show since. I just feel like it's a waste. That being said, with what WWE could have done with Bobby and why Bobby's leaving, maybe he wants to see what he's worth, I don't know. Your thoughts on his overall run in WWE? Because the other narrative so far in the last, couple of days is that in the 6 years he's been back, not including the first few years that he was there for from 05 to 07, but he's been back now since 2018, a lot longer than he was around the first time. And he's had a lot of success. A 2-time WWE champion, 2-time Intercontinental champion, 2-time United States champion, Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal winner for whatever the fuck that's worth, obviously. But, there was a stretch there. The first year or two was awful with the Lana shit. We were there for the wedding. Fucking terrible.
The wedding was great. Watch your mouth.
One of the worst segments we have ever seen live or just in general. The epitome, the perfect conclusion to the year 2019 for that company. But, from that point forward with the Hurt Business stuff, really, striking gold with that. And then in the last couple of years, it's been on and off. But what is your overall assessment of Bobby's recent run in WWE? Did they drop the ball there, or do you think he had a pretty satisfactory run overall?
I think he had a good career. A good comeback. I assume we probably talked about this when he came back in 2018, like you said. I assume we probably said there's a chance of him being WWE champion, but mid-card was probably more ideal for him. And like you said, multiple-time WWE champion. The Hurt Business was a big thing on Raw for a while. United States champion. I feel like he did a ton. I think it'd be foolish to say that he didn't. I think he had a really good run, and he also at the back end of his career when he came back in 2018, he was 42, 43 years old, so it's not like he was a spring chicken when he came back.
Yeah.
They usually don't even give guys like that opportunity, so I think he had a good return. I think it'd be kind of foolish to say you dropped the ball. Could they done a little bit better maybe? Yes, but, like I said, he was a WWE champion. If you told me that was going to happen, I'd probably laugh in your face. I just don't think they ever really saw him at that level, but I thought he had a good comeback, and I don't know how you could say it's a failure. He won the WWE Championship twice.
Yeah, there's a lot of people that I would say that have left or have either been released or left on their own that I would be like, all right, they didn't do enough with this guy, and I've talked enough about those people. But Bobby, there's obviously with every person, you can't say they've had a perfect career. There's always opportunities that they drop the ball on. With him, obviously, the greatest example was the Hurt Business. When he first came in, he had a lot of buzz coming over from TNA, and that just was completely fucking squandered. And the aforementioned Lana shit and the Rusev feud, the Braun Strowman feud, a lot of shit they were doing with him in 2019 was just god fucking awful. They had him with Corbin and Drew at one point when they were feuding with the Shield. It was pretty bad. It looked like he was doomed for the mid-card, probably for good. And people are lucky that, he didn't leave before his contract came due in 2020 or 2021. But, thankfully they turned things around in the Vince era, no less, as well, and became WWE champion. The second reign only lasted all of 2 fucking weeks, but the first run was a 6-month-long WWE title run from March through whenever he lost it. I think in September to Big E. So that was a pretty decently long run. But it seems like in the Triple H era, Ricochet's on his way out on his own. Bobby's on his way out on his own. I know there's people that like Dijak, they didn't renew his contract. He probably would have wanted to stay, but he didn't leave on his own. Other people as well. What do you think? Is that not a testament, but is that some sort of a message about the current Triple H era that he's only willing to push certain people? It feels like more people are coming and going, more so leaving WWE right now than in the last couple of years. And not because they're releasing them either, but because, they just want to explore other opportunities elsewhere. What do you think that's an indictment on? WWE's current product, the fact there's other competition, or that Bobby probably sees the writing on the wall and thinks he probably won't be a main event player in Triple H's WWE?
Yeah, I think it's a little mixture of both. I think when they had Vince was running, it was kind of just like a bloated roster. They had a ton of people that they just weren't utilizing. Now I feel like you said, they're not straight up releasing people, but I feel like now they're kind of more than this, looking at it as once they're done, once their contract's up, we'll just let them go. We don't see anything for these people. So, yeah. I feel like you don't want an overly bloated roster because then you just have a ton of people that don't mean anything. But I don't know if Bobby is one of those people I'd put in there. But, if at this point, like I said, he's 48 years old, he's almost close to 50. If they don't really see him as a guy they're going to prioritize within the next few years, it makes sense. But I think the other releases or non-contract renewals, just we have all these people, we have all these younger people that maybe we see more promise in, so we might as well focus on them than these older people that we don't see at that specific level.
Yeah, I mean, they just brought up Ron Breaker and a few other NXT call-ups. They're clearly trying to showcase and push and whatnot. They did bring back a lot of people at one given time, a lot of whom did not work out, like the Hit Row and Emma, among others, around that point. But, the people that did get over have gotten over, and they've got a lot of people currently carrying both brands in WWE, so I don't really think they have an issue there. On the contract talk, I had seen yesterday on the flip side from AEW, that Buddy Matthews actually had apparently re-signed with AEW back in February. I don't really know why that's coming out now, but he did debut in February 2 years ago, so it would make sense that he re-signed back in February of this year. That one surprised me. I would think that he would... I'm not saying everyone's unhappy there. I don't want to say that message. I don't want to send that message, but you would think with his wife working in WWE, and there could have been a place to bring him back alongside Rhea. I feel like that would have been the perfect opportunity, but if he's happy in AEW, Buddy Matthews, and he's had a decent run there, I don't know what the future looks like for House of Black in AEW, but when I saw that surprised me. What did you hear about that, and what were your thoughts on it, if so?
Didn't hear about it. You're just telling me now for the first time, but, I mean, I guess it really depends on what you want to do. I feel like maybe he was like, you know what, maybe if I come back, I'll be like Andrade, who's really done nothing.
Yeah, true.
So, I mean, I think it always has its... I don't know. I feel like, if it all really depends on how they're going to use you, I guess, is the best way to just say it. I mean, it's a straight up answer. But, I mean, maybe he thought, I like what I'm doing now. The schedule's lighter.
Yeah.
I haven't really seen House of Black at all on AEW TV, but maybe he's just happy with what he's doing. He doesn't want to go to WWE, and maybe, I don't know, say promise correct is the right word, but, like, doesn't want to go there and not be utilized. Then it's like, at this point, what am I going to do? I feel like WWE always, with Rhea working there, I feel like there's always a chance he could come back. Obviously, he's just a big star, so maybe he's just going to re-sign, go down a couple road, and maybe later on he'll go to WWE, but I feel like it's not like a must for him right now. I mean, if he's happy where he is and getting paid, I'm assuming decently, it's worth maybe riding out for a couple more years, and then at that point, if it's not what you want it to be or you want to switch it up, like I said, I think the door is always open for him specifically just because how big Rhea is.
Yeah, it makes sense. I mean, it does go to show that not everyone who is working in opposing promotions is willing to jump to the other promotion to be with their significant other. I think they've proven that because Rhea's obviously not going anywhere, and he had the opportunity if he wanted to leave, and he didn't, so that's nice to see. I mean, again, I think the Rhea thing would have made sense, but then beyond that, what do you do with him? I mean, that's also a valid question to ask. With Andrade, I mean, I think it's very clear, especially now that he's on SmackDown, which is the show Charlotte will probably be on when she comes back from injury. They are just biding time until Charlotte comes back to utilize those two, either together or, I don't know, but I know Charlotte wants to work with them as an on-air pairing. I don't even know if that would work. I've always been skeptical of that for the last couple of years, but, I mean, it's something at least. I mean, Andrade's building some momentum right now, but I don't see him winning like the United States Championship anytime soon. He's not going for the WWE title, so, I mean, I don't know. I feel like he's in that position. With Buddy, he doesn't even have as high of a ceiling as Andrade does, so maybe he did make the right decision ultimately. A similar source from, I think it was Wrestle Purists, they had said that Keith Lee and Malakai Black's deals are also up, in quotes, relatively soon. PW Insider later said about Black that his deal is at least through 2025. If not, I don't know about through, but it expires at least in 2025. Tony Khan did say back in 2022 when he was asked about it, when Triple H had taken over, because people were saying, oh, Aleister Black should go back, blah, blah, blah. He had said that he was under contract for 5 years at that point, Malakai was, and he debuted in 2021, so who the fuck knows. But you hear that, Keith Lee, Malakai Black, let's say right now they were free. If you're Triple H, are they worth bringing back? Is there value in returns for Keith Lee and Malakai Black, both of whom have wives that currently work for WWE?
It's a great question. I think Aleister, I'd say yes. Keith Lee, I think there's something there. Just I don't know, like health reasons or what's going on. His AEW run's been, I mean, just frankly terrible.
Yeah, it's been pretty disappointing. Yeah.
Like I said, I'm not sure exactly how much of it's health reasons and how much of it just they don't really have anything for him to do. But, I mean, he had that thing with Swerve, got attacked, and I feel like we've barely seen him since. He, like, changed his hair color, then he changed it back, and then he really hasn't been on TV. I couldn't even tell you the last time I saw him in a match. So, I mean, I think Aleister Black definitely. I think he was like more of a Triple H guy. Keith Lee, same way, but like I said, medically wise, I'm not sure exactly where he is, and I don't know. I feel like he'd be one of those guys that bring back, and they really don't know what to do with him.
Yeah, I mean, I love Keith Lee. The guy's great, obviously, but his health has definitely been his biggest issue over the last couple of years, dating back to his WWE tenure. But in AEW, I know he was supposed to face Swerve at that World's End show because we were going to that show, and I was looking forward to the match, and then he pulled out like that day due to a medical injury. I know Tony said he had an arm issue, like he separated his shoulder back at Grand Slam. I don't know. He had been working through an injury for a long time, but that was also 7 months ago, and he's active on social media, but there's been no firm update on his return at all. So, yeah, his entire run's been very disappointing, partially creative-wise, partially due to the injury stuff. I would like to see him back in WWE, but at the same time, if he can't really offer much, if he's not healthy, that really should come first and foremost, and maybe not right now. But again, that's just, hypothetically speaking, he may not actually be available for a while. Same thing with Malakai Black, but I think there's a pretty decent chance that we could see both guys back in WWE before long if they were once Triple H guys once upon a time. So just to keep an eye out on that. One more contract thing for you. These people reportedly WWE bound. So the report had come out a few months ago that the Motor City Machine Guns, they were done with TNA. That was true. And that they were free agents. And that they were looking towards joining AEW, which would make sense because they have, history with the Bucks, and that just kind of fits their style. And it was a lot. I mean, I wanted to see what they could do in WWE, but I was like, okay, that makes sense. And then nothing happened. And the report from, I think, bodyslam.net was that they weren't coming in anytime soon. So a couple months go by, nothing really happens. They're still working indie dates and whatever. And now the talk, per, I think, Fightful or Wrestling Observer, whatever it is that they are actually headed to WWE. Now, I don't know if that's imminent or if it's at some point in the next month or two. I don't know. Yeah, so your thoughts. I know you're familiar with Motor City Machine Guns from TNA. Do you think they can offer something to WWE? Or are they a good pickup for that company?
Yeah, I think they are. I mean, they need more standard teams. I mean, I feel like every tag team is a makeshift team of two singles guys. So I think it's needed, and I think it would be a good get. I mean, I know they're probably at the back end of their career, but I think they're still working well, and I think it would be a good get.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think they can add a lot to that division on any brand. I think they would probably be NXT bound first, right?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Give them a little bit of a run. I don't know. I mean, I would hope they'd be on the main roster. They're not exactly spring chickens, but those both guys, I mean, as someone who's been, following their careers for, consistently for well over a decade now, they can still go even as recently as their TNA run a few months ago. So I would like to see them in WWE. Not exactly something I ever thought would happen, but it's a new time. I know they're stacking their women's division. We talked about Stephanie Vakir, Julia, and I think they just signed a woman named Delta. I have no familiarity with her whatsoever. But if she's good, then that's cool. So we'll see how that pans out as well as far as the future of the women's division goes in WWE. So on Monday's Raw, I got to talk about a couple highlights from the show on Monday. We saw Rhea, Liv, Dom kind of progress that storyline. Dom went off on Liv in Spanish, which was funny. Liv started crying, walked away, blah, blah, blah. Rhea licking Dom. I forgot about the part where Liv showed her ass in the fucking jean shorts and people went berserk online. A very viral moment from the show on Monday. But overall, though, in all seriousness, it was a strong segment to kind of progress the story along. Does this kind of add to the idea, Mr. Marceau, that we could be seeing Dom turn on Rhea? I feel like they did what they did on Monday to make it more quote-unquote shocking when he joins Liv at SummerSlam.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's like a red herring, and obviously at the end he's gonna side with Liv. I mean, they've been keeps acting like he doesn't want it, but then he gets in people complain the sexuality, but he keeps getting himself in these positions, and you can tell the wheels are spinning. I mean,
yeah,
he has the interest, but then he's afraid of Rhea, so that makes sense. And then, especially here, she kind of told Rhea, in a sense, he's not into girls like you, he's into girls like me.
Mm-hmm.
Little ass shot, people went crazy. I mean, I don't think it was that, it wasn't she was,
crazy,
naked.
Yeah.
She had, jean shorts on. Relax, people.
Yeah.
But, I think it was done well. Like I said, I think it's just, kind of like you said, he said that he's with Rhea, but I think at the end it's gonna be them together, and Rhea's gonna be screwed out, and I don't know, maybe we'll get her and Jey Uso versus them too. I don't know if that's the right direction, but we'll see what happens. But I think at the end it's gonna be, like you said, shocking that he goes with Liv, but I think that's where we're going here.
Yeah, I was thinking that he might cost Rhea the win accidentally, and I'm still kind of leaning that way, but now I think it's pretty likely that come SummerSlam, they will literally have him turn, not literally, but like have him, actually turn on Rhea. Because they gave us the moment on Monday where they reunited and they're back on the same page, so you got to do this swerve at SummerSlam, so I'm thinking that's where they might be going with it. You mentioned the possibility of Rhea and Jey against Liv and Dom. One person who would not be a fan of that is Rikishi. We talked about that. He is not a fan of that direction. Kayfabe is still real to him, damn it. And, actually it's not. He wants to believe, or he knows, that Jey Uso is actually married in real life. Why is that not being brought up on screen? It is a little weird because they were doing videos leading up to WrestleMania with Jey and his fucking son. And, he's married and whatever. And now he's all of a sudden flirting with Rhea. And he's done that before. I mean, it's a little inconsistent, but not to the point where it bothers me. Is that a match that you would want to see, Jey and Rhea versus Liv and Dom? I feel like that might be what's next for Jey, because we've talked about for a while, what are they doing with him right now? He's out there racking up wins, which is great, but it doesn't really seem like he has any direction. So is it the Rhea thing? Is it reuniting with Sami Zayn? What would you like to see Jey Uso do next coming out of SummerSlam?
Wheels are spinning right now.
Yep.
Like I said, I guess you could do like a one-off. Like, obviously, I don't want to like see this as like a thing. Like, I'd rather just like maybe do a little one-off, and then we move on. But like I said, on Raw, him and Sammy beat Balor and McDonough. So like, they beat the tag champions, and it'd be nice to see. I think theoretically we get them back together, and then like you can intertwine Sammy into the whole bloodline thing. Like, he was there before. Like, he's like the honorary, like, I feel like you could run that back again with Jey, Jimmy, and Roman against the new bloodline. So, I mean, I'm fine with that. I don't really love him with Rhea, but I think on a little one-off basis, I wouldn't hate it. But yeah, he is married in real life. Rikishi does not like that.
No, Rikishi was not a fan of that at all. He was very bothered by the fact that Jey would be interested in Rhea on television. And I hope they do it just to spite Rikishi, just so I could see his reaction online, because apparently gets him very annoyed, apparently, based on his reaction on that podcast. But you mentioned the bloodline thing. Do you think Sami Zayn's involvement in this with Jey? You mentioned like a one-off reunion with them, kind of reuniting a little bit. Is this like a taste of what we can expect in the remainder of the Bloodline saga? Because we've got the Bloodline saga going on right now on SmackDown. It's been pretty basic stuff so far on SmackDown, leading into SummerSlam with Solo on the WWE title. They've got Cody outnumbered, taking out Owens and Orton, standard stuff. Do you think this might be leading to Jey and Sami? We know Jey at some point will be involved in the Bloodline Civil War with Jimmy. We know that's coming. Do you think this might get Sami Zayn on the babyface side? So at some point, whether it's at War Games or another show, it could be Roman, Jey, Jimmy, and Sami against the modern Bloodline. I know Hikuleo they recently reported that he's actually WWE, not even bound. He is signed to the company. They're just waiting for the right time to debut him. So do you think Sami could be involved in that match based on what we saw on Monday, or is that not really something you want to say?
No, I think that I would like that more than Hikuleo, honestly. I'm going to be honest. I mean, it's like going full circle in the whole story, reunite again, honorary Uso. I would be so down for that. It's not even funny.
I think it'd be a fine direction for Sami Zayn, because we know he's probably should be losing the Intercontinental Championship at SummerSlam. Braun Breaker, once again, the number one contender, beating Ilya Dragunov by referee stoppage on Monday's Raw. So, I think that match I think having Sami involved with the Bloodline stuff would make sense now that we know the match has been made official with Braun and Sami at SummerSlam. Braun wins. Sami moves on to Jey. And again, like we talked about before we hit record here, they did beat the World Tag Team Champions on Monday. WWE doesn't always follow up on stuff like that, but you would think it would make sense for Jey and Sami at some point, whether it's next week or the following week, to get a World Tag Team title opportunity. Whether they're successful or not, they should get it. And maybe that's what plants the seeds for them to be involved in whatever the Bloodline will be doing coming out of SummerSlam with Roman Reigns. And Roman Reigns is a free agent, so once he resurfaces, very likely at SummerSlam and soon after on SmackDown, we could see him on Raw as well to try to recruit Jey and Sammy.
Give it to me.
Hey, listen, brand split be damned with Jey and Sammy going to SmackDown to feud with the Bloodline. At this point, it doesn't even matter, but you could hear Roman's music hit on Raw. Maybe not the first time we see him, but Roman, do you think we could get a segment where Sammy and or Roman kind of apologize to each other for what happened last year?
Give it to me.
I think that'd be amazing television.
Dude, imagine if like Roman's getting his ass kicked on SmackDown, can't do anything, comes out on Raw the next week begging for Sammy and Jey to take him back. I got goosebumps going down my arm right now.
And Jimmy too?
Jimmy, I feel like 30. I feel like, wasn't he? Yeah, last time we saw Jimmy, he was aligned with Roman anyways.
He was. He got beat up by Solo and Tama Tonga.
But if Roman came back to like beg for Jey and Sammy to help him, God, like I said, goosebumps on the arm right now.
I think we got to go full circle with this Roman and Sammy thing because they were friends, and then Roman. I know Sammy turned on him, but Roman was kind of manipulating him. They kind of have to bury that hatchet and move on. I think he's friends because they were so entertaining together. Reuniting or recapturing that magic with Paul Heyman too as baby faces, I feel like there's a lot of potential there.
Ugh, it's only inning 4, people.
I know Sammy's not an Anoa'i, and everyone else in this group is either a Fatu or an Anoa'i or related to them or a cousin or some shit. Sami Zayn is the only one that would stick out, but I think there is an exception to be made for that, considering how entertaining of an addition he would be to the story at this point.
And he's the honorary Uso. It counts.
He should still be considered the honorary Uso. And what was that joke that he did on SmackDown? Oh, feeling Uso. Got to bring that back. Feeling Uso. You know what? Once in a while, I'll go back and watch that segment from SmackDown from like September of 2 years ago, where Roman, he had a shirt made or something. Sammy had a shirt, and he was like, "Can I be the honorary Uso?" And Roman was like, "No." And you thought the turn was going to happen there. He was going to beat the shit out of him. And then he goes, "Because you're going to be wearing this shirt instead." And then he hugs him. Oh, just must-see television. Tremendous television. And then you see that look in Roman's eyes like, yeah, I'm going to lead you on for now, but at some point this will all be coming crashing. The facial expressions were just unmatched. Prom Prince. Hey, that match of Mania sucked with Jimmy and Jey, but hey, getting them back on the same team. I would say that it couldn't happen soon enough. For Jimmy's sake, for Jey, I would rather see him on his own. He's got to win a fucking mid-card belt at some point. This guy keeps winning matches. For a guy that wins a lot, he really can't win a title to save his life. I'm starting to think he's allergic to gold or something like that.
No, he's only allergic to gold for singles. He's won tag belts.
With Jimmy and Cody, yeah, good point. I don't know. It's a very weird situation.
It sounds like he's just a B-plus player.
Listen, I made this comparison to you a week or two ago. He's like Jeff Hardy, but even Jeff Hardy in WWE won a couple world championships, albeit for a month, albeit for 5 minutes.
He was also Intercontinental Champion for a little bit, too.
Well, that's the thing. He was at least Intercontinental Champion 5 different times over the course of a number of years. Jey hasn't done shit. He's gotten a number of, mid-card title runs, but, man, I don't know. Give him something, dude. At least LA Knight's finally probably getting that championship. Or do you think, we'll talk about it next week when we do predictions. Do you think LA Knight will actually win at SummerSlam, or do you think they might hold off for another show?
He has to win.
I can't go on with this Logan Paul reign any longer. I like Logan Paul, but it's been going on for 8 months. We got to move on.
Yeah, I like Logan too, but like I said, I feel like LA Knight loses again. I'm all set. It's just you're getting to the point he just can never win. It's like you said, same with Jey. He just loses every time. You're eventually going to lose to fan sympathy. Eventually it's going to run out. You need to do something with these people. It's giving Braun Strowman vibes, and
yeah,
when he was he would always come close and never win. I beat Goldberg that one time, but it wasn't that was the plan. But you got to pay it off eventually. These guys are so over. You have to give the fans something to hang their hat on.
I agree. Got to give him something. I know it's a weird landscape right now where Braun's about to become Intercontinental Champion, so Jey probably wouldn't win it anytime soon. But, hey, listen, someone asked me yesterday who would beat Braun for that IC title at some point. Jey could be the answer. He'll probably be fully entrenched in the bloodline stuff, so maybe not. But I think Jey taking the belt off of Braun might not be a bad idea.
Yeah, just depends on I feel like at that point he'd still be entrenched in the whole bloodline stuff, but, maybe he can win the belt somewhere along. He can still win the belt, but I think, like I said, the priority is more the bloodline stuff. But he needs something. Like I said, needs something to hang his hat on. The tribe's I'm getting restless over here. I love the guy, but you got to win something. The guy's a glorified loser.
He wins all these matches that just don't matter, and then he can't win whenever it matters most. We bring it up all the time. So, you know what? Maybe he can beat Braun Breaker at WrestleMania. Maybe if Braun's champion for 6, 7, 8 months, maybe he can beat him there. By that point, the Bloodline stuff with his involvement could be over. And he's still on Raw, challenging for that championship. I think it could work. I know that by that point, him and Jimmy will probably have reunited, but I don't see why they can't do a New Day thing where they're like buddy-buddy and Jimmy and Jey are back together, but they're still pursuing single stuff, specifically Jimmy. I just don't like the Prophet. Jey, I'm sorry, Jey, not Jimmy. The Prophet should be in that same position where they're still doing tag stuff, but Montez Ford is getting more opportunities. The fact the Prophets, side note here, the fact they've been doing their thing in the tag team division for as long as they have been is great, but the fact that Montez is yet to break out and the guy's been ready for a long time now, it still really, really bothers me. I like Dawkins, but if you want to create some stars, you got to try it with Montez, and maybe Bobby leaving the company will be the opportunity to do that. I don't know.
Yeah, I feel like they just like panic and break them up, but like you said, I feel like you can still keep them together and they can have like singles aspiration. I feel like it's like a trope at this point, like, oh, if you're in a tag team and you want to go for singles, you got to break up. Like,
yeah.
They don't.
No, you don't. I don't think that's necessary at all. So hopefully we could see him get a chance and other people get a chance like Jey Uso as well. Last thing, really not a lot to talk about here because we kind of expected it to happen, but Rollins was made official as the special guest referee for Punk and McIntyre at SummerSlam. We were questioning, is Punk cleared? Will he be cleared? We kind of figured he would be. He is. He said that on Monday as of last Saturday. Assuming that's legit. Rollins will be the special guest referee. I feel like this has got to lead to Punk getting fucked over by Rollins, whether it be on purpose or accidentally or inadvertently, whatever. I feel like that's what this has to set up in order for it to make sense.
No, same. I think it's going to lead into Rollins and Punk going into WrestleMania. So, I think, like I said, I don't know if he needs a cost in them. It could be by accident, but it's just got to keep it going. So I think that's where we go here.
Good theory there. Do you think, I know we are getting Punk and Rollins. Obviously, after this SummerSlam match, Punk and McIntyre will continue their feud. You can't just do a one and done and then not go back to it. I think McIntyre wins. Punk can beat him at Bad Blood or whatever the fuck. I think McIntyre should win. But do you think they would save Punk and Rollins for Mania, or do you think to wait a whole, 9 months might be a long time and they might have another opponent in mind for Punk on that show instead?
Yeah, I think it really depends. I feel like if you're going to keep going Drew and Punk, you can draw it out a little bit longer and then rekindle Rollins and Punk going into 2025. So I think that's the case. I feel like they could stretch him and Drew out a little bit longer. Then you have like Survivor Series leading into the Rumble. And then you can, like I said, get it going from there. Mm-hmm.
Hey, listen, if anyone can pull it off, it's probably Triple H. He's done a lot of long-term booking stuff since he took the book a couple years ago. So, they've gotten a lot of time out of a lot of feuds by simply dragging stuff out, for better or for worse. But I feel like with that one, Punk and Rollins is a Mania match. The only issue with it is that I would love for it to be the Mania main event, but without a championship on the line, it probably wouldn't be. Rollins got his Mania main event this year in the tag team match, but I think Punk should still main event at some point, and probably wouldn't happen unless Rollins was World Heavyweight Champion, which ain't going to happen if Gunther is champion. So, I don't know. We'll have to wait and see where we are in a couple of months. But we'll talk more about all this stuff next week here on the show. SummerSlam predictions as well, obviously. I'm headed into the pay-per-view next weekend in Cleveland. New episodes every single week. WrestleRant.com, WrestleRantRadio.com, and all the usual podcast platforms. Enjoy your weekend, brother. Let me know how Twisters is. I already told you. We already talked this offline, but I did not love the first one. I like the second one a lot more. I feel like you're going to text me and be like, yeah, this movie's ass. Like, I feel like the trend lately has been movies that I recommend to you, and I feel like I'm such a failure. I recommended If, and you only watched 45 minutes, so I gotta knock this one out of the park.
Yeah, no, I think I like it. I don't think there's a reason I should hate it, but I think I know what I'm getting myself into, so I think you're in good hands for this one.
They got Jelly Roll in there. They got, not as an actor, but they used the SummerSlam theme song as I think that's why they're using that song for the SummerSlam theme, is because it's in Twisters and there's like a relationship there. I don't know, but his song is actually in the movie. Spoiler alert. So
can't wait.
Let me know what you think, brother. Enjoy your week, and I'll talk to you soon.
Later.
Join Graham GSM Matthews and RJ Marceau every Thursday as they run down their weekly wrestling rants, offer expert analysis, host exclusive interviews, and more. Subscribe today on all your favorite podcast platforms and never miss an episode of WrestleRant Radio.